For a long time, if you were talking about treating depression, you were really only talking about one thing, daily medication. But what if there's another path, something totally different, an approach that's coming out of the shadows? And it's not about just managing symptoms day to day. It's about aiming for a full-on reset of the brain. So today, that's what we're digging into. These two very different paths to healing. The daily pill we all know versus the really transformative potential of guided psychedelic therapy.
So let's picture this. On one hand, you've got the standard playbook, right? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. It's a daily commitment. It's really a marathon of managing your symptoms. But then on the other hand, you have psilocybin-assisted therapy, and this is more like a sprint. We're talking just 1 or 2 intense, guided sessions. And the goal here? It isn't just to manage things, but to try and fundamentally reset your entire perspective. So yeah, 2 treatments, but really, 2 totally different philosophies on how to heal.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the core ideas behind each one. Then we'll get into the really cool stuff, the neuroscience, how they literally change your brain. After that, we'll talk about the experience. What's it actually like for a person going through this? We'll compare the timelines, that whole marathon versus sprint thing, and we'll unpack what the end goal even is for each. And finally, we'll zoom out and ask, what does this all mean for the future of mental health care?
Okay, so first things first, let's be really clear about this. We're not just comparing 2 different substances here, not at all. What we're actually looking at are 2 completely different ways of thinking, 2 totally separate philosophies about what it even means to treat and maybe even heal from depression.
And to really get our heads around this difference, we have to go deeper. Right into the wiring of the brain itself. So how do these things actually work on our neural circuits? How do they change the way we think?
Okay, so let's start with SSRIs. The whole idea here is based on continuous chemical management. Think of it like this. The goal is to keep more serotonin, that's a key neurotransmitter for mood, hanging around in your brain. You take a pill every day to keep those levels up and hopefully stabilize your mood over the long run. It's all about rerouting your brain chemistry, day in and day out.
Now, psilocybin. This is where things get really fascinating. It's what's called a prodrug, which is just a fancy way of saying your body has to do a little work first. It converts the psilocybin into something else, the active compound, psilocin. And that's what goes to work interacting super powerfully with your brain's serotonin system. It specifically hits this one receptor, the 5-HT2A receptor, and that's basically the key that unlocks the whole psychedelic experience.
So, to get why psilocybin might be a reboot, we need to talk about a part of the brain called the default mode network, or DMN for short. You can think of the DMN as your brain's screensaver. It kicks in when you're not focused on the outside world, when you're just thinking about yourself, daydreaming, worrying about the future, replaying the past. It's basically the hub for your sense of self.
And here is the crucial connection. In depression, that DMN is often stuck in overdrive. It's hyperactive, and that can trap someone in these endless loops of negative thoughts, of rumination. Well, what psilocybin seems to do is act like a circuit breaker. It temporarily takes the DMN offline, disrupting its activity, and that quiets down that loud inner critic, giving the brain a rare chance to break free from those rigid, well-worn depressive thought patterns. So you see, it's not just about tweaking chemicals, it's about potentially changing the entire narrative your brain is telling itself.
Okay, so the brain science is one thing. It's pretty incredible. But what does all this actually feel like for a person? The subjective human experience. This is where the 2 paths couldn't be more different.
And this is absolutely key to understanding psilocybin therapy. It is not just about taking a drug. The whole experience is carefully structured around what's called set and setting. Set is your mindset going in, your intentions, your expectations. And setting is the physical environment, a safe, comfortable, supportive space, usually with trained therapists guiding you. This whole framework is designed to make you feel safe enough to be open to whatever comes up.
And the experiences people have, well, they can be incredibly profound. Take the famous Marsh Chapel experiment back in 1962. A respected religious scholar named Huston Smith took part, and he described his journey as, quote, the most powerful cosmic homecoming I have ever experienced. Just think about that. For so many people, this goes way beyond a simple chemical reaction. It's a deeply meaningful, sometimes spiritual event.
And look, this isn't just one guy's story. Science has actually put numbers on this. A huge landmark study from Johns Hopkins in 2006 found that a whopping 61% of participants reported having a complete mystical experience. And get this, in the group that got a placebo, it was only 13%. And the effects lasted
2 months later, almost 80% of the people who took psilocybin said they had increased life satisfaction. That's pretty incredible.
Okay, but we have to be real and talk about the risks, because there are risks to both. And again, they're totally different. With SSRIs, the side effects are often chronic, right? Things that can go on for as long as you take the pill. Stuff like emotional blunting, feeling kind of numb, or sexual dysfunction. With psilocybin, the risks are acute. They happen during the session and then they're over. We're talking about the potential for intense fear, paranoia, maybe a panic attack. And that, right there, is exactly why having trained guides in the room is absolutely non-negotiable.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the timeline. We've been using this marathon versus a sprint analogy, and you're about to see just how true that is.
I mean, the difference here is just stark. On one side, SSRI treatment is a pill every single day for months, maybe years. Psilocybin therapy, at least in the way it's being studied, is just 1 or 2 sessions with the actual substance, and those sessions are bookended by weeks of therapy, both before to prepare you and after to help you make sense of it all.
And the results? How fast do they kick in? Well, with SSRIs, you're waiting. It can take 4, 6, even 8 weeks to feel a difference, to even know if it's the right medication for you. But with psilocybin, the studies are showing something else entirely. The antidepressant effects can be incredibly fast. We're talking within hours or days of just 1 session.
Okay, so it's fast. That's impressive. But does it last? What about the staying power? This is where the research gets even more mind-blowing. A follow-up study from Johns Hopkins in 2022 checked back in with patients, and they found that for some of them, the antidepressant effects from just 2 sessions were still there a full year later, 1 year.
And all of this really brings us to the heart of the matter, the philosophical divide. What is the ultimate goal here? Is it just to manage the symptoms day to day, or is it to fundamentally change your entire relationship with depression itself?
This table really lays it all out, side by side. You've got SSRIs, where the goal is managing symptoms. The mechanism is ongoing serotonin management. The dosing is daily, long-term, and the outcome is emotional stability. Then you have psilocybin-assisted therapy. The goal? A whole new perspective. The mechanism? A short, sharp disruption of brain networks like the DMN. Dosing is just 1 or 2 sessions with therapy. And the key outcome? Well, it's the potential for rapid and sustained remission.
So when you put these 2 models next to each other, you can't help but wonder, what does it mean that this second path is now reemerging? What could this mean for the entire future of mental health care?
You know, this shift isn't just happening in a few labs. Remember, this research was basically frozen in time, shut down in the 70s. But that 2006 Johns Hopkins study, it was like a spark that reignited everything. Now you have top researchers saying, hey, maybe this shouldn't be a Schedule 1 drug, the most restrictive category. Maybe it should be Schedule 4, like a prescription sleep aid. And then in 2021, the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, awarded the first federal grant for this type of research in over 50 years. The tide is definitely starting to turn.
So let's bring it all home. The really crucial point here isn't about which one is better. It's that these represent 2 fundamentally different ways of thinking about depression. You have one model that's focused on managing a chronic illness, and another that's focused on creating a catalyst for deep psychological change.
And that leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? If one path is like being given a really good raincoat to get through the storm, and the other path is about learning how to navigate the storm yourself, what does the future of mental health care look like? What kind of tools do we want in our toolkit? Is it one or the other? Or maybe some combination of both? That's the question that's going to define the next generation of treatment.